Now that we've got our operating manual for the planet and these 4 basic objectives that are easily understood and everybody can learn and put into practice, the question is, how do we actually implement this? And so in addition to sort of knowing what the foundations of sustainability are, we need some strategies that will help us put it into practice. And one of the ways that we can think about that is that we need to sort of harness the neuron of every person in our family, our organizations, our community, our workplace, because this is too complex of an issue to let anybody's brain power be wasted. What we're talking about is what Peter Senga, a kind of organizational efficiency guru, talks about, is turning our organizations into learning organizations. That is, enabling and empowering and engaging every person in the organization, from the person who might be working on the line to the person who might be sitting in the CEO's office. Everybody has to be involved. How do you do this? Well, you create a common language and you identify some basic, simple principles that everybody can understand, and they can put those into practice in their own place. That's the framework for strategic sustainable development that we've just been talking about in terms of the natural step. That is our operating manual.
So a couple things to keep in mind as you start creating a sustainability action plan, right? So of course you need your priorities. What are we going to start focusing on? What are the actions and the innovations that are going to drive us towards being a more sustainable household, being a more sustainable business, being a more sustainable community? So 3 key questions to be asking. 1, do these actions actually move us towards being more sustainable, hitting on all 4 of those guiding objectives? 2, does this create a flexible platform? Is this something that we can try? If it doesn't work, we can adjust it. Maybe we can go another direction, but it's still moving us towards that end goal. And 3, is this going to be a good investment? And not just in terms of our money, but our time. These things take time to put into place and to evaluate to see how well they're doing. Is this going to be worth our time and money to invest in this particular action? So, does this move us towards all 4 objectives? Does this create a flexible platform for us to operate in? And is this a good return on our investment of time and money?
The problem is, while we all do this ourselves all the time, it's really difficult with organizations. And part of the reason is because in our organizations, we're not taking a look at the whole system, we're only taking a look at one part of it. It's kind of like the parable of the blind man and the elephant, where one person is touching the tail and say, oh, that's a rope, somebody else is touching the tusk, that's a spear, somebody else is touching the belly, that's a wall. They're all right, but they're all wrong, because neither one sees the whole. So what we need is some set of techniques, some set of organizational strategies that will allow us to, in some sense, get the system in the room and allow everybody to start working with that.
So in order to start moving towards a sustainability action plan, many organizations and businesses are very used to operating by utilizing forecasting, right? Saying, well, look, here's where we've been. We've been doing pretty well. We'll just project that into the future, keep doing what we've done, keep doing well and moving forward. However, we're currently in a situation where when we look back, we're maybe not doing so well in terms of sustainability. So we can't use the same methods that got us here to get us out of here. So we can't look at what's brought us here and try to project that forward. That's just not going to work. So forecasting, maybe not the best tool for a business or organization to use in terms of developing a sustainability action plan.
What we recommend is something called backcasting, a technique that was developed by the Natural Step. And the idea of backcasting is what we're trying to do is we're going to try to use this to free ourselves from the shackles of the past and what we might refer to as the tyranny of the present. Because what happens is that too often when we start to think about what we want to do, we say, well, we can't do that, or because it won't happen, it didn't work, we tried that already. What we want to do is we want to sort of free ourselves, free our imaginations from what we think might be possible based on our taken for granted ideas right now. What we want to do is say, where would we like to be 10, 15 years from now? When you start to create a vision about the future that's 10 or 15 years from now, you're not thinking about, oh, I can't do this in the next 18 months. You can think, wow, we can accomplish great things in that. Once you have that vision, then you move back to the present, and then you start to move back towards your vision step by step. But that vision is an aspirational vision that allows you to sort of begin to move forward and adjust as you go along.
So we call this our ABCD methodology. And there's an E there too that I'll get to a little later. But we start with A, this awareness of sustainability that we already have, right? What is it? How can we start putting it into play? And then we go to B. Well, we see these guiding objectives. What are we using that is not sustainable? How are we behaving that's not sustainable? Where are we at right now? How much energy are we using? How much waste are we creating? And then you can come up with some creative solutions to get you towards that vision that you've outlined a year down the line, 5 years, 10 years out, right? Then you can start deciding on your priorities and moving towards that vision. And you notice in the graphic, it's not a straight line that we're following, right? It's not a hard and rigid path. It's something that's flexible and allows you to move and meet opportunities as they arise and adjust your path as you need to. And of course, we're keeping in mind those 3 key questions that I mentioned before. Is it moving us in the right direction? Are we going towards that vision? Are we addressing all 4 of those system conditions? And is it a flexible platform? We're not stuck in a rigid track that if we fall off, it's all over, right? Can we be flexible with how we get there? And finally, is it a good return on our investment? Is it worth the time and money to move us in this direction towards this vision? And this is where E comes into play, right? Evaluating it. Being able to get to that point and say, we're here. This is our vision realized. But how do you know that you're there? Right, that you've reached that point. Being able to evaluate based on your baseline information and where you are now, and then start the process all over again. Get a new baseline, create a new vision, and move forward out of that point of evaluation.
So now we have an operating manual. We have some techniques that we can use to put it into practice in our workplaces, our organizations, our communities. The question we want to ask ourselves next is, why does it matter?